So LeTisha, help me understand, what do you define as a traditional relationship?
I define traditionalism as basically straightforward. It is what it is. There's really no deviation from it. It's based along the lines of gender roles. The man has his role and the woman has her roles, and they pretty much understand it. The man is going to be the one who is typically going to be out there being the provider, making the money, and the wife typically is a stay-at-home wife and mother. So it's very, it's not that complex or complicated.
Well, you say it's not that complicated, but we're going to get into that because there's the complexities that come with that. Humans are humans, right? So you're saying that it's based on these very specific gender roles. Wife does wifely duties. Husband does husband duties. He brings home the bacon. She cooks the bacon, right?
Correct.
So let me ask you a question. In today's environment, why do you think that is still a necessary endeavor in relationships? And why do you think people might have strayed away from it?
I say it's necessary because in that regard, it is, you pretty much know what you're getting yourself into. You already know how the foundation is to be laid. You already know the structure. You also see less divorce in traditional marriages. In traditional relationships, you see marriage for the most part. You see marriage, whereas in non-traditional relationships, it is what it is. But you're definitely going to see marriage. And I think people strayed away from it because of the negativity of being in a traditional marriage. Some men did abuse the privilege of having a stay-at-home wife and a stay-at-home mother. Then you had women who opted to want to have some form of independence, because in traditional marriages, as a woman, you're giving up a lot of your autonomy, because the person who was paying all the bills gets the most say, gets a bigger piece of the say. And a lot of women felt that was just too stringent for them. So they didn't want to have to deal with that. They wanted to have, it's hard to ask for someone. It's hard to ask your man for any money, any, as they called it back in the day, it was pin money. They called it pin money to take care of your basic necessities. Instead of feeling like a wife, you felt like a child. And a lot of women balked at having to do that. They wanted some type of autonomy. They wanted some freedom. They wanted to be able to do as they please. And plus it gave them a sense of accomplishment to be able to contribute to the household and not feel like just a dependent. So you've seen a whole movement where women are able to get their own. There was a lot of, when marriages back then fell apart, the woman was left like, okay, what am I going to do? I have no job experience.
Let's talk about that for a second, right? So Trill, what are your thoughts on that, given everything she laid out, given why she thinks it's important still and why people strayed away from it? Or do you think it's important still? Or do you think there's a reason people strayed away from it? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a reason people strayed away from it. I think it has a lot to do with, just like she said, independence. A lot of relationships lasted back in the day because they were, those women were afraid to leave because my livelihood is tied to this marriage. My status in the community is tied to this marriage. I know great grandmothers and grandmothers that still can't even drive to this day because, my man drove, or don't know how to pay bills because my man did that. So, when those men, went off and had these other families and different things like that, you were kind of forced to eat it or start from scratch. But, if you're not educated, if you don't have any job skills, any certs, it's going to be hard to take care of yourself. So you have a lot of those women that are going from man to man, and their livelihood kind of depends on this man. And I think the younger women in this generation seen that. And was like, nah, I'm going the complete opposite way of that. I want to be able to take care of myself. I want to be able to leave under my own volition. So I think it started with the women empowerment movement around 50, 60 years ago. And then it's just kind of escalated and, going forward. And now it's, gone a bit haywire, if I may say so myself. But So that would be, what caused it, and that would be why a lot of women in this generation are totally against it.
Wow. So you mentioned haywire. What's haywire about today's generation when it comes to the dynamics and relationships?
Well, because you have what that process did was it created a lot of masculine women, right? So when I mean haywire is that, it would have been okay if, you I guess upgraded in terms of empowerment in the community and you were still able to quote unquote submit. I hate using that word, but submit to your man. You basically follow your man's program. But with independence and with the, perseverance and a lot of what it takes to be a provider, even for yourself, you have to take on masculine traits. So what that does is that it kind of makes it hard for those women to even want to work with a man. Unless he's making significantly more money. And then it's a situation where, okay, well, I kind of have to bow. But even, ironically, a lot of women that are doing very, very well for themselves avoid those men who are making a lot of money because they've grown to, love the control and they don't want to get rid of the control. So when I say haywire, I mean that it's hard for that type of woman to buy into a man's program because she's developed masculine traits, getting the status that she has today.
LeTisha, how you feel about that?
I think you're trying to get me in trouble. I'm like, Jeff done set me up to get me in trouble. But I can't disagree. I can't disagree with what he said. Unfortunately, it has gone haywire.